Boker. Today's Daf Yomi is Kesubos Samach Beis, Kesubos 62. We're going to start on the bottom line of Samach Aleph Beis, the bottom line of 61b, where it says that the students at Talmidim Yotzin with Talmud, they go out for the studies, Bereshus. That in order to go out for a study, they need to get permission of their wives, meaning to say that they're required to give their wives intimacy, to be with their wives and to have physical intimacy, but also not just physical intimacy, but also emotional intimacy. That's a husband's responsibility to be with his wife. So, but they're allowed to go out and study and not be with their wives if they have permission. Bereshus Kama, the Gemara says, well, if they have permission, how long are they able to go out for? The Gemara says, Kama Debai, whatever, they have permission, however they want, however long they want. So the Gemara says, no. Orcha de milsa. What's the appropriate way to do it? Kama. Appropriate way is how long should a Torah scholar go out to study for and not be with his wife? So Amarav chodesh kan v'chodesh b'bayis. Rav says 1 month in the yeshiva and 1 month in the home, as it says in Divrei Hayamim or Chol Devar Hamachlekos. For when the king would send out watches, and these are the people who serve the king, for all the people that were going out to serve King David. So you see that they went to serve him for 1 month, and then they went back home for 1 month. So Rabbi Yochanan says, no, Chodesh Kan Ushnaim Bebeso. No, 1 month in the yeshiva and 2 months in the house, as it says, Chodesh Yu Bilvanon. And it says there will be 1 month in Lebanon and to do the work of the king in building the temple. He said that it says that when Shlomo Melech was gathering the cedars of Lebanon for the temple, there were 30,000 men, and it says he sent 10,000 a month. So Chodesh Yu Lebanon Ushnayim Chodeshim Bebeso. Each person with 1 month in Lebanon and 2 months in his house. So Rav Nami my time Amar Me'ahi. So why does Rav not cite Rabbi Yochanan's verse? Amar Me'ahi Shani. No, he says that case is different. The reason why they have 1 month in the building of the temple and then 2 months back home, that case is different because Shani Benyan Beis Hamikdash the Efshar Yidei Acherim. The temple is different because it could be done by other people. The temple can always be done by other people, and so therefore that case is different. So then the next verse states, Rabbi Yochanan my time Amar Me'ahi. So why does Rabbi Yochanan not cite that pasuk? So why does Rabbi Yochanan not cite the pasuk from that Rav cited that those who served King David, that they waited 1 month while they're serving the king and 1 month in their home? She says, no, Shani Hasam the Islay Arvacha. In that case, it's different. Of course, he has to go serve the king because the king is paying him more. And so therefore, he agrees to go more frequently because he's getting a higher salary. Amar Rav, so since the Gemara brought a machokas between Rav and Rabbi Yochanan about the amount of time a person should leave their home to study Torah, the Gemara brings another dispute between them. It seems a little bit of a stretch because Rabbi Yochanan, we'd have to check. I'd have to check how often they argue in the Shas. I think it's pretty common. It's not like these are Amoraim who don't argue with each other. But anyway, Rav says, Anacha, if a person does a groan, Fisais, Shoveres, Chatzi Gufu Shohadim. If a person groans, then it breaks half their body. As it says, Vatem, Vata Ben Adam. As it says in Ezekiel, and Vata Ben Adam Heanach b'Shivron Masnayim u'b'mirus Teanach, meaning to say that the groan breaks the body up until the Masnayim. The Masnayim are translated usually as the loins, which is half of the body. So that's what Rav says, that when you groaned, it broke it up to half of the body. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Avkol Gufo Shel Adam, he says the whole body breaks, as he cites a different verse from Yechezkel. What's the verse? V'haya ki yomru elecha when the Jewish people will say to you that to see you groaning, why are you groaning? V'amarta el shmua kivai, because I heard that the temple is coming. V'namas koev, and my whole heart melted. V'rafu kol yadayim, and my hands became weak. V'kchiyata kol ruach, and I was short of breath. V'chol birkayim telachna, and my knees weren't even moving anymore, like water. So we see from here that when you groan, it breaks the body from the hands until the heart, the whole hands. So the Gemara says, okay, that's fine. We like that, but why does Rabbi Yochanan not say? Rabbi Yochanan say like Rav? Rabbi Yochanan yaksib b'shivro masnayim. So he says, no, no, that groan starts from the loins. That's the point there. The Rav Nami, and what about Rav? It talks about the whole body breaking. So he says, Shani Shmuel, the base of Mikdash, and there Yechezkel is referring to the news that the temple was broken. And so since it was such a horrific news that the temple was breaking, the Tkifa Tova, that was so strong, that's why it broke the whole body. But the normal size are not going to be as devastating. The Gemara tells a story about this. There was a Jew and an idolater who were walking along the road, and lo imtzi was Israel. So the idolater wasn't able to keep up with the Jew. He wasn't able to keep up with him. So Ad Karei Chorban Beis HaMikdash. So he reminds him, remember your temple was destroyed. Nagid ve'isnach. So the Jew stopped and he started to moan and he moaned. So the Jew cried out and he moaned. So but still, nevertheless, the idolater still didn't reach him. He said, didn't I tell you that a groan can break half a body? Didn't I tell you that? Yeah, he says, he says, yeah, that's if it's a new report. Whoa, but this is an old report. As the expression states, this is the expression, the milfatachli lo bata. So Rashi tells us what this very sad expression is. Ha'isha umedes l'shakel banea, we call from a woman who unfortunately has practiced bearing her children. Eina tmiya, she's not going to be shocked. She's already suffered so much. When another one of her children, Rahmana Litzlan, dies, she knows how to deal with it. Her coping mechanism has figured that out already. So Shekfar Limudas, she's aware of it. So here too, we say that if it's an old, you know how to move around. When you're used to the bad news, it's not going to slow you down as much. It doesn't make the pain any less. It just makes you more aware of how to cope with it. Anyway, the Gemara goes back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah had been discussing how often a person was required to be to be intimate with one's wife. So the Talmud tells us and the Mishnah said Hatayon Mikol Yom. The Tayoan are these people who are required to be with their wives every day. My Tayoan. Who are the Tayoan? So the Gemara first approach is to suggest that they're Amarava B'nai Pirkei. These are people who are Torah scholars, Torah students, but their Rebbe is found with them in the city. So therefore, they go home every night to be with their wives. So that's what it's referring to. Amoy Abaye says, no, it can't be. He says, Man dachsibahu shav lachem mashkimekum. So about these women, it says about them, shav lachem mashkimekum me'achrei sheves me'achrei sheves ochel lachem ha'itzavim kein yititain lidido sheina. And so this is the verse that refers to those who wake up early after resting. They eat the bread sad, and and who is these people? So Rashi says this refers to that they that they eat their bread sadly. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give to his beloved sleep. So too God will give sleep to those who are only nodding off for his great honor. So we see from here, Ramar Rav Yitzchak, that this refers to the Nishosen Shel Talmidei Chachamim, that this verse refers to the wives of the Torah scholars, Sheminadedos Sheina Me'aneim, that they have to rub out the sleep from their eyes, in this world, that they don't get any sleep. And they come to the world to come, these women, meaning to say, because they're waiting all night for their husbands, because their husbands are at the shir, and their husbands are studying Torah, and their wives are waiting at home, and they're trying to stay awake. So we see from here that you think that these men are going to come home and have the time to be with their wives. They're studying Torah all the time. So therefore, it can't be that this reference to Tayoim is a reference to Torah scholars. So Abai says, no, who is this a reference to? Who are the Tayoim? Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas. It refers to Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas. Who are the Tayoim who are supposed to be with their wives every day? It refers to a Pashan Jew like Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas. The Achal Mididei, he has his own food. V'Shasa Mididei, he drinks his own food. Begani Betua Da'aftina. And so who was Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas? He was, Rashi says, he was a teacher of children, and they used to pay him a small salary. He was a tutor, but he had his own food, his own drink, and he slept in the Betua, in the shadow, the Aftine of his house. And the king never bothered him with the taxes. The king would never come to his home and say, "Where's your taxes?" Because he wasn't a real estate guy. So therefore, you see from here, this was the person who was, even though he had a simple life, he was at home every night. He was happy. He had a happy life. He was with his wife, and they enjoyed each other's company. So Kiyasa Rabin Amar Rabin gave a different example. Could go in Mefanke de Ma'arava. He says, no, this refers to the Mefunakim of Eretz Yisrael. Rashi says these are the people. They have good food and drink, and they have a lot of strength. They're in good shape, and they have the strength to be with their wives every night. Rabbi Avo was standing in the bathhouse. Then there were two servants who were supporting him. So the floor gave out from underneath him. So then he grabbed a hold of a pillar, and sulak, and he climbed up the pillar with his hand, and he also saved his servant with the other hand. So another similar story was Rabbi Yochanan, Havikasak B'darga. Rabbi Yochanan, I guess these stories are telling us that in Eretz Yisrael they were strong, because Rabbi Avo and Rabbi Yochanan were both from the land of Israel. So Rabbi Yochanan, Havikasak B'darga, he was going down the steps. Havisamchawei Rav Ami Rav Asi. Rav Ami and Rav Asi were supporting him. If Darga Tute, the steps gave away. So he quickly grabbed a hold of something and he saved him. He saved Ravami and Ravasi. He's like very strong. So so if he's so strong, why does he need their support walking down the steps? He said to them, because what am I going to leave for when I get older? So I have to rely upon, I have to, conserve my strength. The workers are supposed to be with their wives twice a week. But we have another source that says once a week. I'm Rav Yossi bar Rabbi Chanina. So Rav Yossi bar Chanina taught, no kasha, kama osim malacha be'iran, kama osim malacha be'irach haris. Depends where you're working. If you work in your city, do it twice a week. If you're in another city, once a week. The workers are twice a week. When do we say this? When do we say this? When they do the work in their city. But if they do their work in another city, achas v'Shabbos, once a week. Achamarim, echa v'Shabbos, the donkey drivers are once a week. Amrei Rabba bar Rav Chanan Abaye, ichpal tano ashmuinan tayo upoel. So he says, okay, we have an issue here. What's the problem? Because the Tana of our Mishnah had said he had been sasam. He had just said it as a fact, as an accepted opinion, that somebody who takes a vow against being with their wife, Basil says that if it's more than 1 week, then they have to divorce their wife. And so since that's the scenario, well, if you take a vow more than 1 week, then you need to divorce your wife because you're required to be with your wife once a week. So if that's the case, what do you say about the sailor? The sailor was with their wife once every 6 months, or the camel driver, or the donkey driver, and doesn't apply to all those cases who are more than 1 week, or the Torah scholar. It's because even though the donkey driver is with his wife once a week. So for 1 day, so we see that all these people, they're more than 1 week. And for sure, the camel driver and the sailor. So the only people who are included are the Tayalim and the Poalim, the people who are supposed to be every day or twice a week. So we don't understand why you have to divorce your wife. According to what does everybody else do? The only ones who have to divorce their wife, if they make such a vow, are the camel driver, are the Tayalim and the Poalim. So that's how Rav Chanan says to Abaye. He says no. Well, Al-Kulu. He says no. When he says that you have to divorce your wife if you're not with her, if you make such a vow, you can't be with her one week, then you have to divorce your wife. It refers to everybody. Gemara says, but the sailor is every 6 months. But the sailor is prohibited for 6 months. And a sailor is only required to be with his wife every 6 months because he's traveling. Versus you can't compare somebody who has bread in the basket, someone who does not have bread in the basket. Meaning to say, so if there is a vow, then she's always going to think, okay, maybe my husband's going to come home. But if there's a vow, then she's like, well, what am I waiting for? There's nothing to look forward to. There's no hope. There's no anticipation. And so therefore the divorce happens. You can't compare somebody who's vowed against their husband or somebody who there's no vow. So what if you're a donkey driver who's supposed to be once a week, and then in the middle you say, you know what, I got a raise, I can become a camel driver. But the camel driver is once every 30 days. So then what's the story there? Is he allowed to do it, or does he need wife's permission? Is he allowed to automatically transfer to a camel driver? So Abaye says, a woman prefers one kav, very small amount, but she gets to be with her husband. Tiflus, she gets like fun, frivolity, more than 10 kavin and precious. Precious is like asceticism or being away from her husband. So she preferred to be poor and with her husband than wealthier without her husband. The sailors are once every 6 months, according to Rabbi Eliezer. Amar Rabbi Bron, Amarav, Halachak Rabbi Eliezer, the Halachak Rabbi Eliezer. Amar Rav Barava, Amarav Zudiv Rabbi Eliezer, Aval Chachamim Omrim. The Chachamim say, Hatalmidim Yotzei LaTalmud Torah Shtayim L'Shalosh Shanim Shel Bereshus. So he says this is the law that allows the Torah scholars to go out only for 1 month in order to study Torah in another city. That's the position of Rabbi Eliezer. The Chachamim say that the Torah scholars could go out for 2 or 3 years without permission. Amar Rava Samchu Rabbanan the Rav Huna bar Ava, V'Avdi Uvdasa ben Avshayu. So Rava said that we relied upon this opinion of Rav Ada bar Ava, who said that the Chachamim say that you're allowed to go study for several years, and they followed that halacha. The Rabbi ben Mechuzah. Rabbi Rechumi was studying with Rabbi Mechuzah. He used to go to his home every Erev Yom Kippur. That he would study the rest of the year. He would only go home every Erev Yom Kippur. Yom Echad Meshachte Shmaita. One day he got so preoccupied in his Torah studies, and his wife was waiting for him. She kept saying, "Today's going to come. Today's going to come." But he didn't show up. She got upset, and a tear came out of her eye. He was sitting on the roof of his base manager studying. Ifchas igra mitute. One of the boards fell out from underneath him, and he died. So from here, last night my son asked me the question. He said, "I don't understand. The wife is also punished from here. This is not fair. She doesn't want her husband to die. Would she rather be a widow?" So from here, Rav Chaim Shmuel says in his Sichos Musar that the punishment that comes from a punishment that you hurt somebody else, we say Bein Adam Chavero, that they're not to appease the person who was wounded. So therefore, what it is that the punishment is like a fire. Like if you stick your hand in a fire, you're gonna be burnt. It's not that. Say, let's say you stick your hand in a fire to help somebody else out, to like save a baby. So you saved the baby, but your hand is still burnt. So that's what this thing is. He wasn't being punished to help his wife. It was just he did something so terrible, it hurt somebody else's feelings, that the punishment for that is like a natural law that has to occur. So now that explains why Rav Rechumi died. Ona shal talmidei chachamim emas. When are the Torah scholars supposed to be with their wives? I'm Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, me'erev Shabbos le'erev Shabbos. From usually translated as from Friday to Friday, but some say it doesn't necessarily mean Friday night. Some say it means once a week. Erev Shabbos once a week. As it states, Asher Perio Yitain B'ito, and Am Rav Yehuda B'Yitain Rav Huna B'Yitain Rav Nachman. Zam Mishamash Mitaso Erev Shabbos. This is somebody who's with their wives every Friday to every Friday. Yehuda Bereid Rabbi Chia Chasnei Rabbi Yanai Have Azal V'Yosef B'Bei Rav. Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Chia, who was the son-in-law of Rabbi Yanai, was sitting the whole week in the base medrash of Rav. The whole Beis Shimshei and every Erev Shabbos have a Asav Beisei. Every Erev Shabbos he would come to his home, the home of Rabbi Yanai. And when he would come to his home, he would see whenever he came to the home, he would see that Rabbi Yanai would see that there was a pillar of fire coming before him. One day, he was learning too long and he got preoccupied. And Kivan Chazi, since Rabbi Yanai didn't see Simana, he didn't see that sign. Rabbi Yanai said to the people of his household, turn over your beds. We're basically mourning. If I didn't see the pillar, it means he's no longer alive. If Yehuda was still alive, he would never have missed his Friday night to be with his wife. So it was like words that came out from the ruler. Yehuda died. Rabbi married off his son. Rabbi was marrying his son to the daughter of Rabbi Chia. But when it came time to write the Ksuva, so this girl died, the one who was supposed to marry Rabbi's son. Maybe there was a disqualification that prevented this marriage from happening. Maybe that's why she died. Isivu v'ayin b'mishpachos. They were looking at their families, and Rabbi Asi Mishvatia ben Avital. Rabbi came from Shephatia, the son of Avital, was the wife of David. So she was a descendant. So Rabbi was the son of David. Rabbi Chia Asi Mishimi Achi David, and Rabbi Chia came from Shimi, the brother of David. He wasn't a king, and so therefore that's why it didn't. That's why they weren't married. So Azal Yasek Lebrei. So then Rabbi went to marry off his son to be Rabbi Yossi ben Zimra. He went to marry off his son to the house of Rabbi Yossi ben Zimra. Pasku Tarti Srein Shanan. They established the marriage will be for 12 years. He said, okay, for the first 12 years, you're going to go study in the yeshiva, and then you'll get a job. So she went in front of him. So his fiance walked in front of him. He got a glance at her. I'm like, oh, you know what? He liked the way she looked. So he said, Niyabu Sheishan. And he said, let's just make it 6 years in yeshiva. Again, she walked in front of him. He says, you know what? Let me get married to her first, and then I'll go. So Rebbe's son was embarrassed that he wanted to be with his wife. His father said, you have the same, you're following HaKadosh Baruch Hu's example. At first it said, first I'm going to bring the Jewish people into the land of Israel, and only afterwards will the base make the people build. But then afterwards it says, Vasil Mikdash, they shall build me a temple, and then I will dwell amongst them. I mean, say that they're supposed to build a temple first. So Azil Yasef Tate Sari Shaniv Beirav. So Rabbi's son went and he studied 12 years in the yeshiva. Ada Asa Ikari Debeso. So by the time he came home, his wife was barren. I'm a Rabbi, what should I do? So Rabbi said, what should I do so that I'll have grandchildren? Nigrasha, if I'll tell my son to divorce her, they'll say, this poor girl, she waited and look, she lost everything. So let's say I'll tell him to marry a second wife. They'll say, this is his wife, this is his paramour. We see from here, by the way, the Meiri says that even at the time of the Gemara, already they stopped having second wives. So Rabbi prayed, best solution, and she was healed. So Rabbi Chanina ben Chakinai, he went to the house of Rav at the end of the wedding of Rabbi Shimon Yochai. Amalei, Rabbi Shimon Yochai said, he said, wait for me, you're going to yeshiva, wait for me until I can come along with you. But he didn't wait for him. Why? Why didn't he wait for him? See, even if Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai tells you to wait, you're a great scholar like Rabbi Shimon Yochai says, wait, you don't wait for Torah study. You can never wait for Torah study. You don't know what's going to happen. So he says he didn't wait. Azal Yasef Tracer Yoshani Bebe Rabbi. When he studied 12 years in the yeshiva Ada Asi, Ishtana Shvili de Masa. So by the time he came back, the roads of the city were all changed. Well, Yada Mazel Basi, he didn't know how to get home. Azal Yasif Aguda Dinari sat by the banks of the river. Shamel Aivavisa, you're a specific woman. Davukarwe Bas Hakinai, they kept calling her Bas Hakinai, Bas Hakinai. Mali Kuasach Azil. Fill up your jug and come. Amar Shmamina, Ira Visa Didan. He says, oh, this is a maiden from our house. Also Basrei followed her. Then his wife was sitting there. Kanala Kimcha. She was working with the flour. Dalina, she looks up her eyes. Chazise, she sees him. Sava Liba. She had a heart attack. Parachucha, and all of a sudden, basically, she had a heart attack, and I'm in front of Ribbon Shalom, Aniya, so she died. So Chanina ben Chakinai said, Aniya Zu, this poor woman who's waiting so long, is this her reward? I prayed for her and she was healed. And one more story, Rabbi Chama Bar Bisa, Azal Yasef Trei Shari, Shani Bebe Dress. Rabbi Chama Bar Bisa was 12 years in the yeshiva. Ki Asa Amar Lo Avid Kida Avid. Ben Chakinai. When he came home, he says, I have to be careful. I don't want to do what Ben Chakinai did because he gave his wife fright. So therefore, Ayal Yasif ben Midrasha, he was sitting in the base medrash. He went to the base medrash in his house, in this town, to wait, and Shoach and sent a message home to his wife. But while he's still sitting there, also Rabbi Yoshaya Berei Yasif Kameh, his son came along. Rabbi Yoshaya, the son of Rabbi Chama bar Bisna, was sitting in front of him. So he asked all these questions. So he was very sharp. So Rabbi Chama bar Bisna was sad. He said, if only I was around, I could have made my son as good as this boy. He didn't realize it was his son. But then he went home, all beret. Then he saw that his son went with him. Rabbi Chama bar Bisna got up in front of his son, because he didn't know he was his son. He's a great Torah scholar. He thought that this kid was coming because he wanted to continue the discussion of the Torah study. I'm related to Beisai. His wife said, Mika Abba the Kamik May Bray. You ever heard of a father getting up for a son? This boy is your son. Kari Alei, Rami Bar Chamas, Rabbi Chora Bar Chamas said the pasuk, Achuta Meshulash Ober Meher Yinasek. The three-ply cord will not be severed. Zera Boshaya Benosha Rabbi Chama bar Bisa. That is the third generation. That refers to Rabbi Yoshaya, the son of Rabbi Chama bar Bisa. And we'll stop here because tomorrow is the Geschmack Daf of Rabbi Akiva and his wife.